Welcome back to episode 3 of Building a Main. Last episode we progressed through a lot of the early questing and reached our first green cash deck thanks to some quest dice and some ethical gaming. But before we get started with this episode, I owe a massive thank you to everyone who came out of nowhere to support the series the past week. It has completely blown my greatest expectation. I hope you all continue to enjoy the series and everything else that follows. Without further ado, let's just dive straight in. One of my focuses early on in the account is going to be Slayer. I'm a big proponent of training combat through Slayer, especially using certain boss tasks. To that end, we're going to be working towards Smoking Kills, a quest that requires 35 Slayer and then doubles your Slayer points from tasks once it's completed. Because of this doubling, we want to get this quest done ASAP before we start chaining tasks. But first up, we're kicking things off at our player-owned farm, where we started growing some rabbits to start getting some bean income, as well as continue to utilize the daily beehive runs for some large XP gains. I debated starting some herb runs to get some consistent income now we have Toadflax unlocked, but I ultimately decided against it so that I wouldn't add an hourly distraction to other progress. We do still have quite a few low-hanging fruit quests which give a reasonable amount of starting XP. One example of that is Sea Slug, which gets us all the way up to 25 fishing, as well as Fishing Contest, which takes us up to 27. So with those two quests knocked out of the way, we're now ready to start training fishing via methods like fly fishing. As promised, it's not all questing. We're going to be doing some Slayer tasks as we work towards 35 Slayer for Smoking Kills. So we're kicking things off with our Shade Slayer task, which ended up getting us up to 24 Slayer, and ultimately not a bad task to get early on. A lot of the early tasks just give terrible XP, and this one seemed to be not too bad. Also, the remains are stackable, so remember to pick them up, like I forgot to for half the task. After picking up some new tier 40 magic gear, we decided to go and unlock archaeology. And simply put, I needed something AFK to do on my phone that felt like meaningful progress outside of just making a level increase. And archaeology is great for that. There are a bunch of relics here that really help with progressing your account or helping combat later on. So getting the ball rolling on this now seems like a good idea. Also, the price of some of the early archaeology materials, like, I know the game kind of throws money at you, but if you need some cash and you've basically got no levels, this seems like a pretty solid way to do it. So my plan with archaeology is to just sell off the soil instead of screening it. I don't know if screening it would be profitable in terms of the materials it gives you, but the soil seems to sell for a reasonable price, so more cash for us. And getting back to Slayer, we dealt with our dog task by going over to Brimhaven, and we ended up hopping worlds between every kill set for this because they just take so long to respawn. And yeah, other than that, I realized here that I should probably go and get the Bone Crusher and Charming Imp out of Dungeoneering before we start doing any massive Slayer grinds, so definitely puts Dungeoneering on the cards in the near future. Afterwards, we head back to Maztana and we get a new task of Rock Slugs. Now, Rock Slugs are relatively annoying because in order to finish them off, you actually need to use a bag of salt on them. However, if you are a Premier Club member, which is available all year round now, I believe, you just buy bulk membership basically and get it cheaper. If you have a Premier token, you can get a free legendary pet, and these legendary pets have abilities such as Slayer Finisher, which automatically uses the rock salt for you. So with our legendary pet in tow, we headed over to the Relica Slayer cave and started slaying some slugs. In terms of drops, the only interesting thing these guys have is light mystic gloves, which are about 300k, so not too bad. And it also turns out that the legendary pet ability doesn't even use the bag of salt in your inventory, so I guess we'll sell those back. And apparently I decided that these next few tasks were so boring I wasn't going to record any footage of actually killing the mobs, so we did Ankus, Moss Giants, Vampires, and Ice Giants. And now that I've just read that list off and thought about it, yeah, that's a bunch of boring mobs. So, yep, just generic low-level mobs. And while my active time was spent doing these Slayer tasks, my AFK time was archaeology, and we got up to 36. And another set of daily beehives gets us up to 44 farming. The current goals here are chinchompers at 54 farming, and enough beans to unlock the ability for small animals to breed in small pens. And then we're just going to fill up 2 small pens and the breeding pen with chinchompers and let them go wild. So we're already up to 33 out of 35 Slayer, and some of the quests we've got left to do, like Animal Magnetism, actually gives Slayer XP. So rather than do this Ice Giants task, I think it's unfortunately time to go back to questing. That was a very short-lived break. So a fun bug is you can't actually talk to Turiel about any quest stuff until you complete his make a bronze helm and go kill a troll tutorial. It just doesn't show the option to progress with Animal Magnetism. So with that bug out of the way, we have completed Animal Magnetism and got the Ava's Attractor. We do need to actually get 50 range to get the better version that returns our ammo to us, but for now, this will do, and we'll just come back and get that when we get 50 range. And we followed this up with the Eyes of Glaufrey, which gives a bunch of magic XP, is mainly what I was after from this. And then we moved on to Elemental Workshop 1. I am only going to do this one for now. But this gives us enough crafting XP that we hit the level requirement for the Lost City. So, no prizes for guessing what came next. We did the Lost City and unlocked Zenaris, which is a fairy colony on the moon, basically, is my understanding of it. And this quest unlocks the area where the fairy tale quests happen. And part of these quests is unlocking fairy rings, and I'm very interested in doing that, so that's where we're going to be going next. This has to be one of the luckiest set of items for this quest ever. Just an Advanto, an Irrit, and a blue dragon scale. Like, this would be so easy to get. I think my Iron Man got absolutely horrible items, if I remember rightly. Okay, I just spotted a penguin and it just randomly dropped a reward casket, which not insane. A little bit of money. But yeah, those easy caskets can contain fortunate components, which is just like 1.4 mil, so you can just get those by randomly spying on penguins. And there is Fairy Tale Part 1 complete. Actually trivial boss fight, since you can get your farming level so high now. But other than that, it gives us the magic secateurs, which increase your harvest yields from farming patches. I think this can just go in the tool belt now. And it gives us a bunch of farming XP. And hopefully we can now just go on to Fairy Tale Part 2 and get our fairy rings unlocked. Okay, I partially expected this. With the new quest UI, you have to actively accept quests. And in that accept screen is the requirements to complete the quest. Now, back in the day and in old school, you would just do Fairy Tale Part 1 and start Fairy Tale Part 2 because you didn't need the Herblore requirement or anything to get to the point where you get Fairy Ring access. You can no longer do that. You need all the requirements before you can even start the quest now. Okay, starting our way to 57 Herblore, we are doing Jungle Potion because it just gives a nice chunk of Herblore XP. Also, the wiki recommends going way overkill with this quest. You don't need this much food, you don't need the energy potions, you don't need the anti-poison. Just a few Tyber One-Eyed teleport scrolls speeds it up, and that's you golden. Next up was buyers and sellers to start working on thieving. This gives us a bit of thieving XP and unlocks the Thieves Guild, which has these doors inside of it that everyone will know and everyone will kind of hate because it's a really mundane but really quick way of training thieving. You picklock all the doors, you hop world, you repeat. And while we were here, we quickly got ourselves up to 25 thieving. To give you an idea of how quick this was, each 3 doors is basically a level at this point. And with this thieving level, we can do the dig site, which gives us a boatload of mining XP as well as a bit of Herblore XP. There's not too many quests at this stage that give a bunch of Herblore XP, so this is kind of one of the better ones. But the goal is to just skip as many of the early levels as possible and get to prayer potions, because prayer potions were profitable to make, and we need to train up a bunch of herblore, so let's do it profitably. Never thought I'd be saying that. Time for some herblore training. We're starting off with about 11.8 mil, and the plan is strength potions into energy potions into prayer potions, all the way to 57. Let's see if we profit. So in total, we made 49 strength pots, 206 energy pots, and 1690 prayer pots, which we then decanted into 4 doses, and the price check comes up at nearly 13.5 mil. Not too bad considering we only ended up spending 8.7 mil on supplies. A little trick for using in the Grand Exchange. When selling these prayer potions, what I did is I first bought a prayer potion for its insta-buy price. This tells me the active trading price of prayer pots, or the lowest price that someone else is currently selling one for. Then we list all of ours for the same price. It will take longer to sell them this way, but it actually results in us getting quite a bit more for them than if we just dropped the price to insta-sell them. Oh yeah, I forgot to say. So with us bringing in about 13.3 mil here, plus the 3.2 mil we already have, that's going to bring our cash total to 16.5 mil. We started with just under 11.8, so we've made 4.7 mil profit from leveling herblore to 57. Never thought I'd be saying that. After all this herblore training, I went to have some food, and when I came back, a bunch of the prayer potions had already sold off, which is great, but I also realized that I've not yet gone to Anachronia and started the time-gated base camp progression, which is going to be something I want to get started ASAP, so I kind of dropped everything and just ran over there to start doing it. After doing the introduction quest for Anachronia, you get access to the Anachronia base camp. This is a idle game almost. You assign a bunch of workers to gather resources and then you build and upgrade buildings around the base camp. In total, I think it's like a month worth of waiting for resources, so it's pretty time gated, something you want to get done pretty early. But for stuff we can do here right now, we can start working on getting us a teleport over here by building the lodestone. Now, we need to assign some workers to get the correct resources for the lodestone, and then we just need to wait for a bit. So, while we're waiting, let's go find something to do on the island. And our pastime of choice is going to be Herbie Werby. This is a weekly D&D that gives you a load of herblore XP for just clicking on some glowing green dudes. You also get some points that you can use to buy a herb bag, but honestly, the herblore XP is the main reason we're here. And now we're able to build the lodestone, we're free to leave. So we'll just set the idle game on its way, gathering resources for our next upgrade, and probably just come back every few days to keep the progress going. And with our prehistoric detour out of the way, we got back to working on fairy tale requirements by getting 40 thieving back at the doors. I can't wait until we're done with these. Unfortunately, today's beehives weren't quite enough to get us to the 49 farming that we need for fairy tale, so we'll have to wait till tomorrow for that and figure out something else to do for the rest of the day. So what are we going to do if not more questing? That is Troll Stronghold complete, and we put the 2 XP lamps into fire making. My reasoning was that until you get to maple logs, fire making is actually kind of expensive to train because the other logs below maple are relatively expensive, especially compared to maple. But maybe I should have just got another skill up to 30 to use them on instead. And next up is starting on the elf questline with Plague City, which is great for some early mining experience and the Ardoin teleport. But make sure you learn the teleport. I didn't, and I didn't realize for quite a while. Next up in the Elf series is Biohazard, which gives access to West Ardoin and unlocks one of the most fun quests in the game. I was only half kidding about Underground Pass being the most fun quest in the game, but with 65 agility, it's actually not that bad. So the main reason to do this quest is Iban's Staff, which is a tier 50 magic staff. So we'll be making good use of that when we train Slayer. Before continuing on with the questline and doing Regicide, I decided to do our Ice Giant task. Now this was so that I got up to 50 magic and was able to wield the Iban's staff. Because, simply put, there's only 2 times you should need to go into the Underground Pass on an account. The first time is for Underground Pass, the second time is for Regicide. You have the potential of adding a third time if you miss an achievement for killing an Iban follower with the Iban staff. So I didn't want to miss that. And with that out of the way, Regicide is complete for a bunch of agility XP and access to Terranwin. Kind of annoying place to go around, it's just full of traps and agility obstacles that you fail a lot. But honestly, of this questline, all of the quests that I dislike of it are behind us. It's one of my favourite questlines story-wise, and I don't actually mind the Morning's End quests. I just not that big a fan of Underground Pass and Regicide, so it's all up from here. And we've been so productive with our questing that we have another dice to get from Maze Caravan. We're at 108 out of the 150 quest points we need for Vanquish, which, until we get the Sun Spear, is going to be one of our best weapons, which means we've still got quite a bit of questing ahead of us. As for the dice, we got another Bob shirt. We've got 3 of those, what's the chances? I've started experimenting with doing some shop runs, so you can see I've sold some bomb vials and runes in the chat, and basically the plan here is that you can make quite a few mil per day just by buying a bunch of stuff from the shops and selling it on the G. So the plan is to unlock as many of those shops as we can. It's mostly runes, broad arrowheads, bomb vials, feathers if you're really feeling it. But you can make a surprising amount of money every day just for visiting some stores. Continuing on with unlocking quality of life improvements for Slayer, I finally got the motivation to do some dungeoneering. This is a skill that I really, really need the motivation to do, so I'm glad it came, and the goals here are a Charming Imp and a Bone Crusher, and hopefully some of the scrolls, especially the Scroll of Cleansing, that one's really good. But yeah, especially the Charming Imp and the Bone Crusher. We got a lot further in this first prestige than I remember you getting. I remember having to restart a bunch at the lower levels, but we got all the way to 44 just in one prestige. So I'm assuming they've buffed the XP from this. But yep, we got up to floor 22 and now we're prestiging. For those who don't know, when you prestige in Dungeoneering, you clear all your floor progress and you get to redo all the floors again. You get a floor every 2 levels, and per prestige you can only run each one for its full XP once. And the higher prestige you get to, the more XP you get per floor. So when we redo floor 1, we'll get way more XP than when we did it the first time. Okay, checking on our beehives for the day. We are so close to 49 farming, so we'll just need to get a little bit of XP from somewhere else to finish that off. And other than that, I decided to do a bit of research on the player-owned farm, because this thing is complicated enough that, yeah, it needs some research. And basically, there's a bunch of animals that can just feed off of woad leaves, like sheep, cows, yaks. And because I've not been doing sheep, I've actually been leaving a bunch of beans and XP on the table that I really shouldn't have been. So it's time to start farming some sheep. And in order to build our medium pens, we need to get ourselves up to 40 construction. Honestly, the main way of training construction is so much nicer than the way you've got to do it on Iron Man. Okay, so we're grabbing the first medium pen deed, and I definitely made a mistake here. I didn't realize you needed 64 farming to get the second medium pen, so I bought all the stuff to build it. I just can't actually buy the deed. And yeah, I could grab the bank chest, but I really want this can breed in small pens. So I'm going to keep saving up for that. Build this pen. Rather than rely on the sheep to breed to get to capacity in our pens, I'm just going to put 4 sheep in both this medium pen and in the breeding pen and just take them out and sell them. And just sell them for beans once they're fully grown up. I don't think we need the XP so much from them, so I am going to sell them at adult, or at least try to. I'm assuming overnight they'll grow to elders, not much I can really do about that one. And since I apparently just can't stop questing, we've done Carnelian Rising, which gives us a bunch of thieving XP, and 2 lamps for us to throw into fire making again. And enough putting it off, we are finally starting caches. We've done our first cache, managed to get 100 points, just get in an empty world and use the crest as much as you can because it's so much easier to get points as a crest. And that gets us up to 18 divination, and from now until at least 80, probably further, we're just going to be doing 2 caches a day. Okay, so the best time to sell your animals for beans is when they're adolescents. So we're selling off some sheep at adolescent. You get kind of terrible XP for this because the happiness and health meters are both terrible, but you get a lot of beans for it, and this means we can now afford the animals breeding in small pens. So I just came over to this random green manure pile because I had no idea what it was, and it just started giving a bunch of farming XP. So we've now hit 49 farming, which means we can go and do Fairy Tale Part 2. So now that we finally got all the levels for it, we went and did Fairy Tale Part 2. I accidentally clicked off of the quest complete screen while hitting record, but this gives us access to fairy rings, and it gives us the ability to make magic essence, which seems to just be a bad magic potion. Well, that is a lot of progress for one episode. Highlight right at the end, unlocking fairy rings. They make it really easy to get to some really obscure places in the world. But we've started doing caches, the dungeoneering ball has started rolling, our player-owned farm is getting into shape, and we've just knocked down a huge amount more quests. We didn't get smoking kills done, but honestly we've made quite a lot of progress on unlocking a lot of quality of life improvements for Slayer, which we would just get after smoking kills anyway if we rushed it, so that can wait for just one more episode. I'd again like to thank everyone for the support and huge turnout for the series so far. Absolutely blown away. But for now, that's where I'm going to be signing off. Hope you all have a great week, and I'll catch you in the next one.